Expelled for doing the right thing, now he's in love with an alien. Blackwood had never been good at following orders. He didn't believe in, especially not when those orders meant leaving someone to die. The battle raged. Across the crimson skies of Proxima Centaur's third moon, alien artillery fire tore through the atmosphere, creating a hellish backdrop of smoke and flame through his tactical visor. Reese could see the downed transport vessel and the life sign flickering in IDD commands. Orders are clear. Blackwood. Captain Mercer's voice crackled through his cal. No rescue attempts. The Ardenian forces are converging on that sector. Fall back immediately. Adjusted the mechanical wings on his back, sleek, powerful appendages of polished titanium and carbon fiber that marked him as a member of the elite Skyborne division, the only human unit trusted to serve alongside the Ardenian military forces. With all due respect, Sir Reyes, replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins, there's a survivor down there. That's an arid Denian problem. Soldier, their moon, their jurisdiction. Reyes watched as another explosion rocked the transport's hull. Whoever was inside wouldn't last another 5 minutes. Jurisdiction, he muttered. Switching off his cal, the wings on his back hummed to life, and their energy cells glowing bright blue as he angled his body downward. The battlefield blurred around him as he accelerated, diving through layers of smoke and debris, the heat of nearby explosions washing over his armor. His landing cracked the moon's dusty surface. 20 m ahead, the transport lay on its side, its hull breached in multiple places. Enemy fire continued to rain down each impact, sending tremors through this ground. Sprinted forward, his armor's enhanced servos giving him the speed and strength needed to cross the exposed terrain. As he reached the transport, he could see the damage was worse than he thought. The entire rear section was gone, vaporized by a direct hit. He forced open what remained of the main hatch and ducked inside. That's when he saw her. An Ardenian woman was pinned beneath a collapsed support beam, her fiery red skin contrasting sharply with her flowing silver hair. Her black bodysuit was torn in several places, revealing more of that crimson skin than Reese suspected she'd be comfortable with. Under different circumstances, her eyes, startling pools of liquid gold, widened at the sight of him. Human, she gasped, her universal translator converting her native tongue. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, Skyborne Division, he said, kneeling beside her. Let's get you out of here. The others, she asked, wincing as he assessed the beam pinning her. Reese shook his head. I'm sorry. With a grunt, he positioned himself and lifted. The beam was heavy, but his armor strength augmentation made it manageable. The Arden woman pulled herself free, revealing an ugly gash across her thigh. Can you walk? He asked. She attempted to stand, but collapsed immediately, not quickly enough. Outside, the enemy fire was intensifying. They had minutes, maybe less than. We fly, Reese said, scooping her into his arms. She was lighter than he expected, despite her height matching his own 6 feet. He activated his wings, feeling them extend to their full span. The woman stared at them with something like awe. Hold tight, he instructed, and she wrapped her arms around his neck. They burst from the transport just as another artillery shell hit, obliterating what remained of the vessel. Reese banked hard, using the explosion's shock wave to gain altitude faster. Enemy tracers streaked past them as he zigzagged through the air, the woman clinging to him tightly. Her face was pressed against his neck, her breath warm against his skin. My name is Tyra, she said suddenly, her voice barely audible over the wind and explosions. Tyra Terse. Nice to meet you, Tyra, Reese replied, managing a grin despite their circumstances, though I wish it were under better conditions. As they soared higher, breaking through the smoke into clear air, Reese's calm crackled back to life. Blackwood, what the hell do you think you're doing? Captain Mercer's voice was furious. Saving a life, Sir. Reese replied calmly. You've directly violated Ardenian command protocols. Return to base immediately for disciplinary action. Reese glanced down at the woman in his arms. Her golden eyes met his, a mixture of gratitude and concern in them. You'll be court-martialed for this, she said softly. Shrugged the motion, causing his wings to dip slightly before he corrected. Wouldn't be the first time I've been in trouble, but your wings, they'll take them. He was surprised. She understood what that meant. The wings were in just equipment. They were a symbol of status, of belonging to the most elite human fighting force in the galaxy. Some things are worth the Sacrifice, he said simply as they approached the Arden command base. A formation of security vessels moved to intercept them. Reese knew what awaited him: disgrace, punishment, the loss of everything he'd worked for, but as Tyra's arms tightened around him, he couldn't bring himself to regret his decision. Sometimes doing the right thing meant breaking all the rules. The Ardenian military tribunal chamber gleamed with polished obsidian and crimson marble, its vaulted ceiling adorned with holographic constellations that shifted and twinkled above the proceedings. Stood at attention in the center of the circular floor, stripped of his armor, wearing only the standard issue black jumpsuit given to prisoners. His wings, his beautiful, powerful wings, lay disassembled on a table before for the 7-member tribunal panel. Each component had been meticulously separated: the power core, the neural interface, the aerodynamic struts. The sight of them in pieces felt like watching his own limbs being dissected. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood intoned. Admiral Krell, the senior Ardenian officer presiding over the tribunal. His skin was a deeper red than most of his kind, almost burgundy, marked with the ceremonial scars of his rank. You stand accused of direct insubordination during active combat operations, unauthorized use of military equipment in violation of the Ardenian chain of command protocols. Reese kept his gaze forward, jaw clenched. He'd known the consequences when he made his choice. Do you deny these charges? Krell asked, his golden eyes narrowing. No, sir. Reese replied, his voice steady. I do not. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Few humans had ever served in the Skyborne Division. Fewer still had faced court-martial. You understand that as per Regulation 317 of the Human Ardenian Military Cooperation Treaty, your actions are grounds for immediate expulsion from the Skyborne Division and permanent removal of your wing privileges. I understand, sir. Admiral Krell leaned forward. Would you care to explain your actions? Lieutenant Commander Reese finally allowed himself to look at the disassembled wings. There was a survivor, sir, someone who could be saved. And you believed your assessment superseded the direct orders of your commanding officers. I believe saving a life superseded following an order that would result in death, sir. Another murmur, louder this time. The Arden valued hierarchy and order above almost everything else. His answer would not win him any favors. The tribunal has reviewed your service record. Krell continued. Exemplary performance, multiple commendations. You were on track to become the first human wing commander in Ardenian military history. He paused, his expression unreadable and youth. Threw it all away for one life. With respect, Admiral Reese said, meeting Krell's gaze directly. I'd make the same choice again. The tribunal chamber doors slid open and Reese turned to see Tyra Terrace enter. She walked with a slight limp, her injured leg clearly not fully healed, but she carried herself with dignity. She traded her torn bodysuit for formal Ardenian attire, a high-collared crimson tunic that complemented her skin and fitted black trousers. The tribunal recognizes intelligence officer Tyra Terse. Admiral Krell announced. Intelligence officer Reese hadn't known her rank or position when he pulled her from the wreckage. Admiral's commanders. Tyra acknowledged with a formal bow. I come to speak on behalf of Lieutenant Commander Blackwood. Your statement has been noted in the record, Kell replied dismissively. However, the facts of the case are not in dispute. Perhaps not, Tyra said, her voice stronger than Reese expected, but I believe context matters. The lieutenant commander saved my life at great personal risk. His actions exemplify the very qualities the Skyborne Division claims to value: courage, decisive action, and moral clarity. Rays felt a surge of gratitude toward her, though he knew her words would change nothing. The tribunal appreciates your perspective, Officer Terse. Krell said coldly. However, the decision has been made. Tyra's golden eyes flashed with something Reese couldn't quite identify, anger perhaps, or determination. She stepped closer to him, close enough that he could smell the faint exotic spice of her perfume. Then I formally request permission to escort the prisoner to his holding cell while he awaits processing for return to Earth, she said. Admiral Krell hesitated, then nodded curtly. Granted. The tribunal is adjourned. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, you are hereby stripped of your rank and expelled from the Skyborne Division, effective immediately. The finality of those words hit Reese like a physical blow. Years of training, of sacrifice, of Pushing his body and mind to their limits all gone in an instant, 2 Ardenian guards approached, but Tyra waved them away. "I'll handle this," she said with authority that surprised Reyes. As they left the tribunal chamber, Rhys felt oddly light without his wings, empty, vulnerable. The corridors of the Ardenian military base seemed colder than he remembered. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly as they walked. "Speak for you, of course I did." Tyra's fingers brushed against his, a fleeting touch that sent an unexpected jolt. "Through him you sacrificed everything for me. I did what anyone would do." She stopped, turning to face him fully. "No, Reyes, that's what makes you different. That's what makes humans so fascinating. So unpredictable." Her golden eyes searched his face. An Ardenian would have followed orders regardless of the cost. Something in her tone made his pulse quicken. There was admiration there, yes, but something else too, a heat that had nothing to do with her naturally warm skin. "You're holding cell is this way," she said, guiding him down a less traveled corridor. "But we need to talk privately first." She led him into what appeared to be a small conference room, securing the door behind them. "There's something you need to know," Tyra said, her voice dropping to a whisper. "The transport I was on wasn't shot down by accident, and the order to abandon survivors wasn't standard protocol." Rhys frowned. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying someone wanted me dead." Her hand found his arm, fingers pressing into his muscle with surprising strength. "And now they want you silent too." Her proximity was distracting despite everything that had happened. Losing his wings, his career, his future. Reyes found himself acutely aware of how close she stood, of the warmth radiating from her crimson skin. "Why would anyone want you dead?" he asked, trying to focus on her words rather than the way her silver hair caught the light. Tyra's expression darkened. "Because of what I discovered about certain members of the Ardenian High Command, corruption, weapons deals with our enemies." She stepped even closer. "I have probed but I need help to expose it." Their eyes locked, and in that moment something shifted between them, a recognition of shared danger, yes, but also of something more primal, more instinctive. "You lost your wings because of me," she whispered, her breath warm against his face. Reyes found himself reaching for her, his hand settling at the small of her back. "Some things are worth losing." The moment shattered as the conference room door exploded inward in a shower of metal and sparks. Rhys' combat instincts kicked in instantly. He shoved Tyra behind him, pivoting to face the threat. 3 Ardenian soldiers in black tactical gear stormed through the smoke, their faces concealed behind polarized visors, not regular security. These were Phantom Division operatives, the Ardenian equivalent of Black Ops. "Down!" Rhys shouted, tackling Tyra as energy bolts sizzled through the air. Where they'd been standing, they crashed behind a heavy conference table that Rhys flipped for cover. The metallic tang of ionized air filled his nostrils as more shots impacted their makeshift barricade. "Friends of yours?" he asked, his voice tight with controlled tension. Tyra's golden eyes were wide but focused. "Admiral Vex's personal kill squad. They don't take prisoners." "Good thing I don't plan on being taken." Rescan the room for weapons, exits, anything they could use. His gaze landed on a panel near the floor. "Can you get to that vent?" Tyra nodded, already understanding his plan. "Cover me." Rhys grabbed a heavy metal chair and hurled it at the attackers, forcing them to duck. In that brief moment, Tyra scrambled across the floor, her movements fluid despite her injured leg. She reached the panel and worked the emergency release. One of the phantoms spotted her and took aim without thinking. Reyes launched himself at the attacker, his body moving with the muscle memory of countless combat drills. He felt a strange tingling at his shoulder blades, the neural implants that once connected to his wings firing uselessly, seeking hardware that was no longer there. The phantom sensation was disorienting, like reaching for a limb that had been amputated. For a split second, his brain expected the surge of power, the lift that would send him soaring above his opponent. Instead, he remained earthbound, vulnerable, but wingless didn't mean helpless. Rhys slammed into the phantom with enough force to send them both crashing into the wall. The Arden was stronger, but Rhys was quicker, more desperate. He drove his elbow into the attacker's throat, a vulnerable point for Ardenian, and wrenched the energy pistol from the soldier's grip. 2 shots from the stolen weapon dropped the other phantoms before they could adjust to the new threat. Rhys Tyra called the vent cover now open. "They'll have backup coming." He fired one more shot at the door controls, sealing it temporarily, then joined her at the Vent ladies first, how gallant, she replied with a flash of unexpected humor. Despite their situation, the maintenance tunnel was cramped, forcing them to crawl on hands. Anis Reese found himself directly behind Tyra, unavoidably aware of her lithe form moving ahead of him in the dim emergency, lighting even in mortal danger. He couldn't help noticing how gracefully she moved, how the fabric of her uniform hugged her curves. Where does this lead? He whispered, forcing his mind back to their escape. Oh, auxiliary hangar deck, she replied over her shoulder. If we're lucky, we can steal a shuttle, and if we're not lucky, then we die gloriously in battle. As the old Ardenian poems say, I prefer the human poems about living long and happily ever after. She glanced back at him, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Another fascinating cultural difference. They reached junction in the tunnels, and Tyra paused. The neural implants for your wings, they're still active, aren't they? I saw you twitch when we were fighting. Ree nodded, a pang of loss hitting him again. Standard procedure is to remove the wings, but leave the neural interface less invasive. Oh, I'm sorry, she said softly. I know what those wings meant to you. They were just technology, he replied, not entirely convincingly. Maybe someday I'll fly again. Her hand found his in the dim light, squeezing gently. I'll help you when this is over. The simple touch sent warmth spreading through his chest. It was strange how quickly he'd come to trust her, to care about her opinion. They continued the U through the tunnels until they reached another access panel. Tyra pressed her ear against it, listening for movement outside, then carefully pushed it open. They emerged into a dimly lit corridor. Alarm clacks and wailed in the distance, but this section appeared deserted for now. This way, Tiger whispered, leading him down the hall. The shuttle bay should be just ahead. Reyes followed, keeping the stolen energy pistol ready. What's the plan once we get off base? I'm guessing they'll track any shuttle we take. I have contacts in the outer colonies, she explained, people who have been helping me gather evidence. They can hide us until we figure out our next move. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with a patrol of regular security officers. Reese reacted instantly, firing two warning shots that sent the Ardenian diving for cover. Run, he shouted, grabbing Tyra's hand. They sprinted down the corridor, alarms blaring in their wake. Ree felt that phantom sensation again, his neural implants firing, trying to activate wings that weren't there. In the past, he would have simply soared above such dangers, carrying Tyra to safety. Now he was grounded, forced to run like everyone else. The shuttle bay doors loomed ahead, tantalizingly close. Tyra slammed her palm against the access panel, but nothing happened. They've locked it down, she hissed. Reese aimed the energy pistol at the control panel. Stand back. The shot fried the circuitry, but instead of opening the door, it triggered a security lockdown. Metal shutters began descending from the ceiling, threatening to seal them in the corridor. Plan B, Reese asked, backing away from the close cling shutters. Tyra's eyes darted around, then lit up. This way, she pulled him toward what appeared to be a maintenance closet. Inside, however, was a small lift platform service elevator to the external maintenance deck, she explained, activating it with her security clearance. We can access the emergency evacuation pods from there. As the lift began to rise, Ree found himself pressed close to Tyra in the confined space. Her body radiated heat, a natural characteristic of Ardenian that seemed more pronounced now. He could smell the exotic spice-like scent of her skin, feel the softness of her silver hair against his cheek. I'm sorry about your wings, she said quietly, looking up at him with those golden eyes. You lost everything because of M. Reese found his hand moving to her face, fingers gently tracing the contours of her crimson cheek. Not everything. The air between them seemed to charge with electricity as their eyes locked. Despite the danger, despite the alarms, despite everything, Reyes felt an undeniable pull toward her. We should focus on escaping, Tyra said, though she made no move to step away. Absolutely, Reyes agreed, not moving either. Her hand came up to rest against his chest, fingers splaying over his heart. Your species has such interesting physiological responses to stress and attraction. Your heartbeat increases for both. And how do Ardenian respond? He asked, his voice dropping lower. Our skin temperature rises, she said. The warmer we become, the more intense our emotions. Reese placed his hand over hers, feeling the heat of her skin through his jumpsuit. You feel pretty warm to me, eh? Small smile played across her lips. We should really focus on escaping Absolutely, he repeated, still not moving the moment stretched between them. Taut with possibility until the lift shuddered to a halt at the maintenance deck, breaking the spell escape pods. First flirtation later, Tyra said decisively, stepping back the maintenance deck was a narrow walkway that circled the exterior of the base, offering access to communication, arrays, and sensor equipment, and as Tyra had promised, a row of small emergency evacuation pods. These are single-occupant, Reese noted with concern. Will have to take separate pod. Tyra confirmed, moving to the nearest one and beginning the activation sequence. Set your navigation to these coordinates. She transferred the data to his pods computer. It's an abandoned mining outpost on Helios Prime. We can regroup there. Reese hesitated, suddenly reluctant to let her out of his sight. Are you sure about this? Tyra paused, then stepped close to him again. Without warning, she rose on her toes and pressed her lips to his. A brief burning kiss that left him momentarily stunned. For luck, she whispered against his mouth. Now go, I'll see you on Helios Prime. As Reese climbed into his evacuation pod, he felt the phantom sensation of wings one more time, not with regret, but with a strange new hope. Perhaps someday he would fly again, but for now he had found something potentially more valuable than wings. He had found her. The evacuation pod shuddered violently as it entered the atmosphere of the small moon. Warning lights flashed across the control panel, bathing Ray's face in crimson. Something was wrong, very wrong. Navigation system failure, the pod's AI announced in its emotionless voice. Stabilizers compromised, emergency landing protocols engaged. Reese gripped the manual controls, fighting to keep the pod from tumbling through the viewport. He could see the barren, rocky landscape of the moon rushing up to meet him. This wasn't Helios Prime. He'd been knocked far off course. Come on, you piece of. His words were cut short as the pod hit the ground, skipping like a stone across a water before slamming into a rocky outcropping. Pain exploded through his body, then darkness. When Reese regained consciousness, the first thing he noticed was the cold. The pod's environmental systems had failed, allowing the moon's frigid atmosphere to seep in. The second thing he noticed was the blood trickling down his forehead. With a groan, he unstrapped himself from the pilot's seat and assessed the damage. The pod was a wreck. Life support systems offline, communications dead, navigation fried. Only the emergency beacon was still functioning, sending out a weak distress signal. Tyra, he whispered suddenly, remembering, had she made it to Helios Prime? Was she waiting for him, wondering what had happened? Reese forced open the damaged hatch and stepped out onto the desolate surface. The moon was a barren wasteland of gray rock and dust, illuminated by the pale blue light of a gas giant hanging ominously in the sky. The horizon curved sharply, a reminder of just how small this moon was. His military training kicked in first. Priority shelter second, water and food third. Improve the signal strength of the beacon using salvaged parts from near the pod. Rays constructed a makeshift shelter against the outcropping that had stopped his crash. As he worked, his thoughts kept returning to Tyra. That kiss before they separated, brief but intense, like touching a flame. He could still feel the heat of her lips, the surprising softness of her crimson skin. Night fell quickly on the small moon, bringing with it a bony chill that seeped through his jumpsuit. Huddled in his shelter, Reese activated the pod's emergency heater, good for about 3 days if he rationed it carefully. 3 days if no one found him by then. He pushed the thought away. Tyra would realize something was wrong when he didn't arrive at the wrong viewpoint. She would come looking for him. He had to believe that. As the hours stretched into a full day, then 2, Reese worked tirelessly to boost his beacon signal. The phantom sensation of his missing wings returned frequently, especially when he looked up at the vast sky, knowing that once he could have soared through it. On the 3rd day, as the emergency heater sputtered its last, Ray spotted something in the sky, a small craft descending toward his position. His heart leaped. Had Tyra found him after all? As the craft landed nearby, kicking up clouds of gray dust, Reese approached cautiously, the stolen energy pistol hidden but ready at the hatch. Opened and a figure emerged, crimson skin, silver hair, golden eyes wide with relief. Reese, Tyra called, rushing toward him. He caught her in his arms, the warmth of her body a stark contrast to the moon's chill without thinking. He pulled her close, bearing his face in her silver hair. I thought I'd lost you, she whispered against his chest. Can't get rid of me that easily. He replied, his voice rough with emotion. She pulled back to look at him, her hands framing his face. You're injured. It's nothing. How did you find me? Your beacon, it was weak, but I modified my shuttle sensors to pick up even the faintest signal. Her golden eyes searched his face. I've been searching for 3 days. Stopping at every moon and asteroid in this sector, the realization that she had spent days looking for him, risking detection by Ardenian forces, sent a wave of warmth through Reese that had nothing to do with her natural body heat. We should go, Tyra said, glancing nervously at the sky. I've managed to stay off their scanner so far, but we can't risk staying in one place too long. Inside her shuttle, a sleek single-cabin vessel, clearly designed for stealth, Reese finally allowed himself to relax. The cabin was warm, the air tinged with that exotic spice scent that seemed to follow Tyra everywhere. I've set course for a different safe house, she explained. As they lifted off, Helios Prime isn't an option anymore. Admiral Vex's forces were already there when I arrived. How did they know? Ree asked, alarmed. I don't know, but it means we have a serious problem. She engaged the autopilot and turned to face him. Someone is tracking us, or there's a leak somewhere in my network. Reese nodded grimly. Where are we headed now? A place called Ember's Edge, a volcanic moon with natural radiation that interferes with most tracking systems. My people have a hidden base there. As the shuttle entered hyperspace, Tyra insisted on treating Reese's head. Wound. Her touch was gentle as she cleaned the dried blood from his forehead, her fingers lingering perhaps longer than necessary. Ardenian medicine teaches that healing is as much about energy as it is about physical treatment, she explained, her face close to his as she applied a regenerative gel to the cut. We believe in transferring our own vitality to help others heal. Is that why you're so warm? Reyes asked, acutely aware of her proximity. A smile played her lips. And that's just my natural state, especially around you. The implications of her words hung in the air between them. Reese found himself leaning closer, drawn by an irresistible pull. In my culture, Tyra continued, her voice dropping to a near whisper, physical intimacy is seen as a natural extension of trust and mutual respect, not something to be hidden or ashamed of. And do you trust me? Ree asked, his hand finding hers. With my life, she replied. Simply, you sacrificed everything to save me. No Enshin would have done that. What makes humans so different in your eyes? Tyra considered this, her golden eyes thoughtful. You follow your hearts even when it defies logic. You risk everything for principles, for people you barely know. It's beautiful, terrifying, but beautiful. The shuttle's cabin seemed to grow smaller, more intimate outside. The swirling lights of hyperspace cast ever-changing patterns across Tyra's crimson skin. We have 6 hours until we reach Ember's Edge, she said, her eyes never leaving his. Perhaps you could teach me more about human ways of expressing gratitude. Reese felt his pulse quicken. I think that could be arranged. As Tyra moved closer, the phantom sensation of his missing wings returned, but this time Reese barely noticed. He was discovering that there were other ways to fly. The shuttle emerged from hyperspace with a gentle shudder. The swirling lights outside the viewport, resolving into the stark reality of space before them, hung Ember's Edge, a moon of violent beauty. Its surface had tapestry of glowing magma rivers cutting through black volcanic rock. Ree gazed at the spectacular view, still feeling the lingering warmth of Tyra's touch on his skin. Their time in hyperspace had changed something between them, crossing a threshold from attraction to connection in ways he hadn't anticipated. Ardenian intimacy, he discovered, involved not just physical closeness, but a sharing of energy that left him feeling both exhilarated and strangely centered. It's beautiful in a terrifying way, he said, nodding toward the moon. Tyra smiled, her silver hair cascading over her shoulders as she guided the shuttle toward the dark side of the volcanic satellite. Much like us, wouldn't you say? Before Ree could respond, the shuttle's proximity alarm blared. Tyra's hands flew across the controls, her expression shifting from contentment to alarm. Multiple energy signatures near the base coordinates, she reported, activating the tactical display and debris in orbit. A lot of it. Reese leaned forward, studying the readings. Your people? I think so. Her voice tightened. The base has been hit hard. The shuttle descended through the moon's thin atmosphere, hugging the jagged terrain to avoid detection. As they approached the coordinates, the devastation became clear. The hidden base, once nestled in a dormant caldera, was Now a smoking ruined debris was scattered across the black volcanic soil, and several small fires still burned among the wreckage. "We're too late," Tyra whispered. Her golden eyes reflecting the flames below, Reese placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling the heat of her skin. "Even through the fabric of her tunic, we need to check for survivors." They landed a safe distance away and approached the ruins cautiously. The air was acrid with sulfur and ash in the ground. Occasionally trembled beneath their feet, a reminder that Ember's edge was geologically unstable. This wasn't just an attack, Reese observed as they picked through the wreckage. This was extermination. No bodies remained, just scorch marks where they had fallen. Ardenian energy weapons at their highest setting didn't leave much behind in what had once been the command center. Tyra found a partially intact data terminal, her fingers worked quickly bypassing security protocols. "There's something here," she said, her voice tight with concentration. A final transmission sent just before the attack. The damaged screen flickered to life, displaying the face of an older Ardenian male, his crimson features lined with age and worry. "Tyra, if you receive this, stay away. They know everything. The weapon sales were just the beginning. Vex and his coalition are orchestrating a false flag operation to trigger full-scale war between our peoples. They've infiltrated both human and Ardenian military command. The evidence is in the Nexus archives. Access code." The message cut off abruptly. Tyra stared at the blank screen, her hands trembling slightly. "That was Commander Trell, my mentor." "What's the Nexus?" Reese asked gently. "The central data repository on Ardena Prime. It contains records of every official communication, every military order, every diplomatic exchange." She turned to him, her expression hardening with determination. "If Trell was right, the proof we need is there, and the access code lost." Tyra's shoulders slumped momentarily before she straightened again. "But I know people who might be able to help us get in without it." A distant explosion shook the ground more violently than the previous tremors. Reese steadied Tyra as they both looked toward the source of the sound. "That wasn't geological," he said grimly. "They're here." Tyra confirmed, checking her scanner. "Multiple ships entering the atmosphere. They must have been waiting, monitoring the bars, hopping we'd show up." Reese finished. "We need to move now." They sprinted back toward their shuttle, but another explosion, this one much closer, sent them diving for cover behind a ridge of volcanic rock. A patrol ship screamed overhead, its searchlights sweeping the terrain. "They've spotted the shuttle," Tyra hissed, as if to confirm her words. A barrage of energy fire rained down, engulfing their vessel in flames. Their escape route was gone in seconds. "Options?" Reese asked, falling back on his military training to keep panic at bay. Tyra scanned the horizon, her golden eyes reflecting the distant magma flows. "There's an old mining facility about 10 km north. If any of the equipment is still operational, we might be able to send a message to my contacts on Ardenia Prime. 10 km across volcanic terrain with hostiles in the air. That's a suicide run." "You have a better idea?" She challenged, a hint of her earlier playfulness returning despite their dire situation. Reese couldn't help but smile. "Lead the way." They moved quickly but cautiously, using the natural features of the landscape for cover. The patrol ships continued to circle, their searchlights cutting through the darkness. Twice they had to freeze in place as beams swept over their position. Reese pulling Tyra tight against him in the shadow of a rock formation, her body fitting perfectly against his during one such moment. As they waited for a patrol to pass, Tyra turned in his arms to face him. "I need to tell you something," she whispered, her breath warm against his neck. "About what?" Trell said. "The war?" Reese asked, keeping his voice low. She nodded. "Vex and his allies don't just want profit, they believe in Ardenian superiority, that your species should be subjugated, not allied with. They see humans as a dangerous, unpredictable. Can't argue with the unpredictable part," murmured, earning a small smile from her. "That's what they fear most," she continued. "Your adaptability, your willingness to break rules when they don't make sense, like what you did for me." Her hand came up to touch his face, tracing the line of his stubble jaw. "What we found together, this connection between us, it's exactly what they're afraid of, humans and Ardians discovering we're stronger together than AP part." The realization dawned on Reyes. "So we're not just trying to expose a conspiracy, we're fighting for the future of both our species," she confirmed. "And for people like us who see beyond the differences." The searchlight passed, and They continued their treacherous journey across the volcanic landscape as they navigated a particularly unstable area. The ground suddenly gave way beneath Tyra's feet. She cried out as she began to slide toward a crevasse glowing with molten rock below. Ray's lunged forward, catching her wrist for an agonizing moment. He felt the phantom sensation of his missing wings, how easily he could have lifted her to safety with them, but wingless didn't mean powerless. With a grunt of effort, he pulled her back from the edge muscles straining against gravity. As she tumbled into his arms, they both fell backward onto solid ground, breathing heavily. "You lost your wings because of me," Tyra whispered, echoing her earlier words as she lay atop him, her face inches from his. This time Ray's had a different answer. "But I gained you," he replied, the truth of it resonating deep within him, "and that's worth more than flying." In that moment, surrounded by danger on all sides, Reese realized his strength no longer came from technology strapped to his back. It came from what he felt for the woman in his arms. The mining facility loomed before them, a hulking silhouette against the volcanic landscape, once a bustling operation extracting rare minerals from Ember's edge. It now stood abandoned, its structures partially reclaimed by the moon's volatile environment. "Stay alert," Reese whispered as they approached the main entrance. "Just because the place looks deserted doesn't mean it is." Tyra nodded, her energy pistol drawn. The patrol ships had moved to the far side of the caldera, but they could return at any moment. The facility's doors had been sealed shut long ago, but Reese found a maintenance hatch that yielded to his strength. After several attempts, they slipped inside, finding themselves in a dark corridor lit only by the occasional emergency light still drawing power from the facility's backup systems. "The communication center should be on the upper level," Tyra said, consulting a schematic she'd pulled up on her wrist device. "If we're lucky, the deep space transmitter will still be operational." They moved cautiously through the abandoned facility, their footsteps echoing in the empty corridors. The air was stale but breathable, tinged with the smell of machine oil and mineral dust. Reese said as they climbed a maintenance ladder to the upper level. "For a first date, this leaves something to be desired." Tra glanced down at him from above, her golden eyes gleaming with amusement in the dim light. "Oh, and what would a proper human first date entail?" "Dinner, maybe music, dancing, considerably less running for our lives." Her laughter, soft and melodic, echoed in the shaft hour. "Denian believes shared danger creates the strongest bonds. Then we must be practically married by now." Quipped. Something flickered in Tyra's eyes at his words, a warmth that made his pulse quicken, but before she could respond, they reached the upper level, and the moment past the communication center was a circular room dominated by a large transmitter array. Most of the equipment was covered in dust, but to their relief, the main console lit up when Tra activated it. "It's working," she said, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Backup power at 30%, enough for one transmission if we keep it brief." As she worked to establish a secure channel, kept watch at the doorway. The patrol ships hadn't reappeared, but the hairs on the back of his neck stood up. Years of combat had taught him to trust that feeling. "I've got a connection," Tyra announced, encrypting. Now the screen flickered to life, revealing the face of another Ardenian female with darker crimson skin and short crow silver hair. "Tyra, by the eternal flames, you're alive!" The relief in the other woman's voice was palpable. "Abel, barely Gavara, the base on Ember's edge is gone. Everyone's dead." Gara's expression hardened. "It's worse than you know. Admiral Vex has publicly accused you both of treason. There's a galaxy-wide manhunt underway. Every bounty hunter from here to the outer rim is looking for you." Reese stepped into view of the transmitter. "That's not our biggest problem. We have reason to believe Vex is planning a false flag operation to trigger war between humans and Ardians, and it's happening soon." G's eyes widened. "That explains the emergency war council called for tomorrow. Both human and Ardenian leaders meeting on the neutral station, Harmony Point." "Perfect target," Reese muttered. "Take out both leadership groups at once, each side blaming the other. We need extraction," Tyra said urgently, "and we need to get to Harmony Point before that meeting." Gara nodded. "I can have a stealth shuttle to you in 6 hours, but there's more. We've intercepted communications suggesting the attack is scheduled for 800 hours tomorrow. That gives you less than 14 hours to reach Harmony Point and stop it. Send the extraction coordinates." Tyra Replied, and Gava must be careful, we don't know how deep this conspiracy goes. As the transmission ended, Reese noticed something on one of the auxiliary screens, a thermal reading showing multiple heat signatures approaching the facility. We've got company, he warned at least 8 hostiles moving in from the south. Tyra's expression tightened. 6 hours until extraction. We need to hold this position. Reese quickly assessed their situation. This room is too exposed. We need somewhere more defensible. They retreated to a storage area, 2 levels down, a windowless room with only one entrance and thick walls. Reese barricaded the door with heavy equipment while Tyra searched for anything useful. Among the abandoned supplies found some emergency rations, she reported, and medical supplies. Good, we might need them. Before this is over, with the immediate preparations complete, they settled into wait. Reese sat with his back against the wall, the stolen energy pistol ready on his lap. Tyra joined him, her warmth a welcome contrast to the facility's chill. 14 hours to stop a war, she said quietly. Assuming we survive the next 6, we will raise, assured her, though he knew the odds were against them, and will stop. X to Tyra rested her head on his shoulder, her silver hair cascading across his chest. You humans and your irrational optimism, it served us well so far. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the only sound their breathing and the distant rumble of the moon's volcanic activity. In our Denayan culture, Tyra said, suddenly warriors often share a ritual of connection before battle, a way of centering themselves, finding strength in each other. Reese turned to look at her, noticing the deeper crimson flush spreading across her cheeks. What kind of ritual? It's physical, she explained, her golden eyes meeting his, a sharing of energy in essence. It's believed to align 2 beings' life forces, making them stronger together than apart. That sounds suspiciously like something humans do too, Ree said with a small smile, though we probably have different names for it. Tyra laughed softly. I suspect it as much. Your species and mine have more ink common than either side likes to admit. Her hand found his fingers, intertwining. The heat of her skin seemed to intensify, radiating through him like a gentle fire. If we don't survive this, she whispered, I want you to know that I've never met anyone like you, Reese. Blackwood, human or Ardenian, we're going to survive you. Curry, he insisted, bringing her hand to his lips, and when this is over, I'm taking you on a proper date. No explosions, no assassins, no volcanic moons. How disappointingly conventional, she teased, but her eyes shone with emotion. The moment was interrupted by a muffled explosion from somewhere above them. Dust rained down from the ceiling as the facility shook. There outside, Reese said, instantly alert. Tyra rose to her feet, energy pistol ready. So much for 6 hours of peace. Change of plans, Reese decided. We can't wait for extraction. We need to find another way off this moon. The mining facility might have shuttles in the lower hangar. Tess suggested, if any are still operational. Another explosion rocked the facility closer, this time worth a shot. Ree agreed, ready. Tyra's response was to lean forward and kiss him, brief but tense, leaving him momentarily breathless. Now I'm ready, she said with a fierce smile as they prepared to make their desperate escape. Rays felt that familiar phantom sensation where his wings should be, but this time it didn't feel like loss. It felt like a reminder of what he'd gained, something far more valuable than the ability to fly. Reese and Tyra burst through the maintenance exit of the mining facility, energy weapons firing behind them as Vex's soldiers closed in. The volcanic landscape of Ember's Edge stretched before them, offering little cover for their escape. This way, Reese shouted, pulling Tyra toward a ridge of black rock. They had barely made it halfway when a blinding light washed over them from above. Reese raised his arm to shield his eyes, expecting the worst, but instead of weapons fire, a voice boomed from a loudspeaker. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, Intelligence Officer Terry's, stand down and prepare for extraction. Hovering above them was an Ardenian military cruiser, its sleek hull bearing the insignia of the High Command. A shuttle detached from its underside, descending rapidly toward their position. It's a trap, Reese muttered, raising his energy pistol. Tyra placed a restraining hand on his arm. Wait, that's Admiral Krell's personal vessel. The shuttle touched down 20 m away, kicking up volcanic dust. The hatch opened to reveal Admiral Krell himself, flanked by 2 guards. The burgundy-skinned Ardenian who had presided over Reese's tribunal now stood before them. His golden eyes unreadable. You're a difficult pair to track down, Krell said. His deep voice carrying across the distance with good reason. Reese replied cautiously, keeping his weapon ready. Last time we met you stripped me of my wings and rank. Krell's expression softened. Unexpectedly a necessary public action, Private. I've been investigating Admiral Vex for months. I needed proof of his conspiracy. Proof you now possess. Tyra stepped forward. Why should we trust you? Because I could have simply shot you from orbit, Krell answered pragmatically, and because we have approximately 12 hours before Vex's operatives attack Harmony Point and plunge our civilizations into war. A volley of energy fire from the pursuing soldiers made their decision urgent. With a shared glance of cautious agreement, Reese and Ira sprinted for the shuttle. Once aboard, the vessel lifted off, immediately accelerating toward the cruiser above. Admiral Kell guided them to a secure briefing room where a holographic display showed Harmony Point, a massive space station shaped like two interlocking rings symbolizing the union of human and Ardenian cooperation. Vex has positioned operatives throughout the station. Krell explained his plan is elegant in its simplicity. Simultaneous explosion in both the human and Ardenian delegation chambers, with evidence planted to implicate both sides. Classic divide and conquer. Observed each side blames the other, and while they were at war, Vex and his allies profit by selling advanced weapons to both sides. Tia finished. Kell nodded grimly. We'll reach Harmony Point with only an hour to spare. I've assembled a trusted team, but we'll need your help to locate and neutralize all the threats. As the cruiser entered high space, Krell left them to prepare in the privacy of the quarters assigned to them. Finally allowed himself to relax slightly, sitting heavily on the edge of the bed. Tyra sat beside him, her crimson hand finding his. You're thinking about something, just wondering if I'm still dreaming. Reyes admitted yesterday I was a disgraced ex-soldier. Now we're racing to save two civilizations with an admiral who court-martialed you, Tyra added with a rice smile. Life takes unexpected turns. Reese turned to face her, fully. Speaking of which, that Ardenian warrior ritual you mentioned, we never did get to finish it. The deeper flush that spread across Tyra's cheeks made her skin glow like embers. It's traditionally completed after the battle. Is one a reward for victory? Reese asked, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. More like a celebration of life, she corrected, her golden eyes meeting his. A reaffirmation that even in darkness there is warmth and connection. Reese leaned closer, drawn by the heat radiating from her skin. I like the sound of that. Their lips met in a kiss that started gentle but quickly deepened. Months of tension and attraction crystallizing into this moment of connection. Tia's hands found their way to his shoulders, her touch leaving trails of pleasant warmth across his skin. Your human ways of kissing are surprisingly compatible with ardent physiology, she murmured against his lips. Reese smiled. I'm discovering many areas of compatibility. What followed was a discovery of differences and similarities, an exploration of two beings from different worlds finding harmony in each other's arms. The universe outside their quarters faded away, replaced by the intimate universe they created together, a perfect union of human passion and ardent and warmth. Hours later, as they lay together in the dim light of the quarters, Tyra traced the neural implant scars on Reese's back where his wings had once connected. Do you still miss them? She asked softly. Sometimes, he admitted, but I found something better. What's that? Reese turned to face her, brushing a strand of silver hair from her face. Someone to fly with, not just someone to fly above the ships. Intercom interrupted their moment. We're approaching Harmony Point. Admiral Krell announced. Report to the briefing room. Immediately reality crashed back upon them. They dressed quickly, sharing one last lingering kiss before stepping back into their roles as soldiers with a mission. Harmony Point loomed before them, its massive structure gleaming against the backdrop of space. As they docked, Krell briefed his team on their objectives. Reese would lead a group to secure the human delegation, while Tyra and Kell would protect the Arden leaders. Remember, Kell said gravely, we have no official author here. If we're caught, we'll be arrested as conspirators ourselves. Then we won't get caught, Reese replied with characteristic human confidence. That the operation unfolded with precision, using Tyra's intelligence credentials and Krell's override codes. They infiltrated the station's security systems one by one. They located and neutralized Vex's operatives, disarming Explosive devices hidden throughout the diplomatic sectors, the final confrontation came in the central hub. Connecting the two delegation chambers, Admiral Vex himself stood before the main reactor control panel. Surrounded by loyal guards, too late, Krell Vex snarled as they confronted him. The detonation sequence is already locked in. Surrender, Vex Kell demanded. It's over. Vex laughed bitterly. I'm saving our species from these unpredictable humans. They can't be trusted, and they follow their hearts instead of orders, their emotions instead of logic. His gaze fell on Reese, like this one who threw away everything for an Ardenian woman. That's exactly why humans are worth eyeing with Tyra. Countered, stepping forward, they remind us that sometimes orders should be questioned, rules should be broken. Especially when lives are at stake. Vex's response was to draw his weapon, but Reese was faster. A single shot from his energy pistol disabled the Admiral's arm, sending the weapon clattering to the floor. With Vex and his conspirator in custody, Reese worked frantically to disarm the final detonation sequence, while Tyra explained the situation to the assembled human and Ardenian leaders. Got it, Reyes announced finally, the control panel shifting from red to green. Threat neutralized. The aftermath was a whirlwind of debriefings and ceremonies. The evidence against Vex and his co-conspirators was overwhelming, leading to their immediate arrest in the beginning of a thorough investigation into both military hierarchies. 1 month later, Ree stood in a familiar chamber. The Ardenian tribunal room where he had been stripped of his wings. This time, however, he was there to be honored. Lieutenant Commander Ree Blackwood, Admiral Krell announced formally, in recognition of your extraordinary service to both human and Arden peoples, I hereby restore your rank and position. Within the Skyborne Division, an ensign technician approached carrying a case. Inside lay a new set of wings, more advanced than his previous ones, their design sleeker and more powerful as the neural connections were re-established. Reese felt that familiar sensation return, but now it was just one of many feelings that gave him strength later as he tested his new wings in the open air above the Ardenian capital. Tyra joined him, her own newly issued diplomatic wings carrying her to his altitude. How does it feel to fly again? She asked, hovering beside him against the backdrop of a sunset that turned her crimson skin to gold. Ree reached out, taking her hand in midair. Better with you beside me. Below them, human and Arden officials continued the work of strengthening their alliance. Inspired by the story of a wingless soldier and the intelligence officer, he had saved two beings from different worlds who had found something worth fighting for in each other. Tias said thoughtfully, in our Denayan culture, there's a saying, true flight comes not from wings but from the heart. Reese smiled. I think I've learned that lesson already. Together they soared higher, no longer bound by gravity or the prejudices that had once threatened to tear their worlds apart. The end.